record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit's ears. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere. Where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere. Of the free, and you'll know us by the trail of dead. It's just one more world war to complete the set. When you live by the pike, you die by the pith. You die wide-eyed, still pleading the fifth, or crying divine epithets and pathetic attempts at defense. All empathetic for those on your side of the fence. Well, I'll gladly put you and your legacy into an alternate tense of faltering senses and altered events. Like hunted ain't a hearse, it's a reaper's stretch. How sweet, she said. Bunch of hordes in the street like it's Evil Dead. Where the thin blue line meets razor's edge. And where the corporate ladder ascends to a steel-toed boot that awaits on the ledge. You'll be licking it fresh at your boss's request till it stomps each finger and watches you fall to your death. And drown in an ocean of debt. Gone with the fodder who gathered to honor the patient left, who purity tested themselves into sections, step by step, till the next election, when it's just one them and the sound of their well-read theorized breath. That's harm reduction for the lowly cost of you holding your nose and just openly buying the theft. Maybe that's all in the flick of the pen. Maybe we're all one unmarked van from a trip to the pen, being guarded by pigs who exist on a diet of dying breaths of much worthier men. Honey, heaven's expecting you. Just don't get too hung up on who they let in. Just look up at the shine of the pearly gates. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the paint. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the water, lead in the milk, lead in the honey, lead in the caustic embrace of the Heavenly Father. Lead is the flavor of passive perpetual slaughter. Lead is the taste of us led to the ledge by the lure of the legend of expert consensus, and then beckon to stretch it just one step farther. And I hope all the folks who were boastfully gloating and toasting themselves as the heroes of COVID for boosting their boosters and doing their part are now equally thrilled to be starstruck martyrs. All laid in a government grave with anonymous markers, like you're back from the carvers and off to the splicer. You're the very first wave to be slain in the war against Pfizer, that 100 years war against Pfizer. They are thinning the crowd that is striking right now to bleed adequate pay from those inhuman misers who all sit in their office and designate coffins to people regarded as nothing but profit for Kaiser. Still the Dems want you nicer. Dems want you softer, Dems want you kinder. Yeah, they all want you graciously starving in silence. You will speak when you're spoken to. Rest of the time, you and all of us peasants are merely depressing statistics neglected in Congress's binders. All bled, bone dry, then fed to the grinder. Our headstones line each step as reminders. That's a lesson in object permanence learned in the furnace by workers consigned to the fire. Workers bled, bone dry, then fed by the fed to the grinder. Fed by the fed to the grinder. Now the fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Now the fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. And the fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, bleeds you dry, then dines on the dead. The fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. The fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you'll mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your sighs unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see it, it's fed. Never you'll mind that it grinds your mind, that it grinds yourself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led.
Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple Hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something tidal, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blighted idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
When you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, you know, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
Set you free, but I really want to let you be. And a part of of me wished I could set myself aside, just let you take the ride, just chalk the rest up to destiny. I could let you believe that the only restraints in life are the size of your dreams. Let you believe each kid grows up with the world at their feet. When I know too well it's open season, I know they're taking stock and raising stocks and raising stock. And I'm simply not here to sit and watch as you learn the lesson all cogs are taught. Keep your head down and keep to task and just keep on blocking the rest of it all out. Just keep on with the rest of the herd.
What's up, party people? It's Wednesday. We're here. Collin's here. Not Jesse this time. He made it back.
Yes.
He didn't stay in Miami.
I wasn't in Miami the entire time. I was in Fort Lauderdale too.
I'm glad you didn't become a Florida man while you were here. You know.
No.
So,
No.
but
Although the
Go
weather
ahead.
was great.
Yeah,
Weather was great.
it's been nice.
Miami was meh.
Yep. Yep. Miami's meh.
Needless to say, I'm happy
Expensive
to
meh.
be back. Yeah, expensive meh and emotional meh. But it is what it is. But it was, at least it was, part of it was a somewhat restful vacation. So I'm a couple
Nice.
of shades darker, which is great.
Yeah.
Got some color on my face.
You're like
my body.
Baltimore
So-
Moore chocolate number 4. You know?
Something like that.
Benjamin Moore.
But yeah, shout out to Jesse for covering for me last week. I heard you guys. I did watch you guys briefly, but I heard you guys had a great stream.
Yeah, it was a good stream.
Um,
I liked it.
yeah. So, but how have you been?
I've been
since
all
I was
right.
away?
You
And
know,
I've been kind of.
I managed to get everything done for streams and stuff. Like, you helped out while you were here, but not when you weren't here. I got the rest of it done. I'm like, oh, thank you. I did it. Like, you know, I sent stuff to Jesse. All like, I think that's everything. I think I did it. But anyway, we brought stories this week.
Yeah, but yeah. So please, I mean, if you're here, you're practically family at this point. But if you're new, if you happen to be new, thank you. Welcome for joining us on our itty bitty news podcast. Happy that you're here. Please don't forget to like, share, sub, do all the things. We're trying to grow this channel. We love what we do generally. But obviously it takes resources in order to keep doing this. So please support us in any way that you can. At minimum, share our stuff.
Yep.
Get the word out for people, you know, in terms of who we are, what we do, all that stuff. And then we can
I am once again asking for your financial support.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
thanks, Bernie. And we're going to talk about you tonight.
Mhm,
But yeah, just thank you guys. Appreciate the support. And yeah, we're looking to do a lot more things. Reef and I were actually talking off camera earlier. Like, we're trying to get a lot of cool guests. We're trying to get new people, you know, just to get some more ideas and thoughts and new ways of thinking in the space. So we're trying to figure out who should we get. We definitely love recommendations, so let us know as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, we do have stories for you guys today. And as I tweeted out earlier today, unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's gonna be pretty much a very Biden centric stream. But then again, he kind of deserves it given the fuck shit that he has caused while I was on vacation and since coming back within the last couple of days.
Thanks for the tip, Fizzy Pop. I like the little sticker. I appreciate that. And the $3.
That might be our first sticker.
Super
actually, I think.
sticker. Yeah, you did it. You were the first one, Fizzy Pop. Look at you.
So, but thank you
Appreciate
for that.
you.
So yeah, so Biden did the damn thing. He formally announced his reelection prospects yesterday. So we are going to talk about that. And then if you don't mind scrolling down to the slide below that.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to talk about this again. I know I've talked about student loan debt for a while, but I'm going to keep beating this drum. I'm telling you guys to be prepared. This political article is going to give more information that kind of validates what I've been saying this whole time, and then other people in the space have been saying this whole time. But it's not the headaches of what you might think in terms of who will be getting the headache. So
Apply
we're going to put our own spin on it.
Apply directly to the forehead, head on.
Right.
Apply directly to the. Do you remember this commercial? Am I the only one who remembers this commercial? The head on commercial.
One?
The apply directly to the forehead, head on. Apply directly to the. Nope. By Colin's face, he's like, nope. People in chat will be like, oh yeah, I hated that thing. That'd be like right after the Girls Gone Wild commercial, like 2 a.m. It'd be like, head on, apply directly to the forehead. And it was just like literally a lady applying this thing. And it would just repeat that. It was like a 2-second ad that they just repeated. Then they did like another one that was like, you know, it was like very similar. You know, it was literally like, and then they would double them up. So it would be like head on. And then this other thing that was like almost the same. It was like the same thing. It's like, you definitely remember that commercial if you saw it. You know?
I don't. But I might have, but I don't remember that commercial.
That's a very 90s kid, like, you know, we heard that a lot on the television.
But
speaking
anyway,
of,
what did you bring?
Oopsie poopsie. Oopsie poopsie. No debates. Oops, no debates. Oops. Whoopsies. We're gonna talk about that too. And I brought some nightmare fuel for everyone with the insect matrix, so that'll be fun. Stay tuned for that.
We brought this story especially, I guess, really for me.
Yes, just to get good reactions from you.
He just wants more reactions from me, so this will be blind for me. So we might as well just make that like segments that Collin has not seen.
Collin reacts. Yeah, things Collin needs to be scared of. Yep. Dude, the last time I did that, you were like, oh, it was great. It was the best. Oh my god. You ready to get started? I'm ready.
Sure.
Let's do this thing.
Let's get into it. So like we said earlier, Biden formally announced his reelection plans for next year yesterday on the Twitter. And he put out a 3-minute clip, and when I watched it, and I said this, I'm either going to rage or just cry. And I'm sure a lot of you saw it, but if you have, I'm sorry. But for those of you who haven't, I can't even say enjoy it, but
yeah,
just play it, please.
Come on, man.
It's not good, but
so I had to do this. There we go.
Yes, you do.
And then here, and then play.
Yes, you do.
Do I need to go back in time?
I think so. No, not for this.
Oh.
Freedom. Personal freedom is fundamental to who we are as Americans. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred. That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very
okay, already, cutting Social Security when he definitely supported cutting Social Security quite a few times. Okay.
Wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote.
Pause. Vote for them.
Yes.
Vote for them. That's what he didn't say.
Yep. Here at the Democratic Party, we give great hugs, unlike those other party members who give Terrible hugs.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle.
Fizzy Pop asks, where's Hunter? He's too busy trying to make ethics violation requests against other people. That's what he's doing.
For the soul of America. And we still are.
On Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom. More rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent.
Man,
that's why I'm running for re-election.
AI audio is getting
because I
really
know
good.
America.
These AI videos are doing well.
I know we're good and decent people. I know we're still a country that believes in honesty and respect and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country.
Thank you for choosing us.
Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights.
You can barely stand without falling over. Continue.
And this is our moment.
That was that church we know all too well.
Yes.
That he just scrolled by. While he's silencing people.
So if you're with me, go to joebiden.com and sign up.
That's Joe Biden 33030.
Let's finish this job. I know we can. Because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
That's the campaign shit, is let's finish the job. What job did you start?
Exactly. Like, no policies at all. He didn't talk about anything, and there's probably a reason for that. Because what shit did he accomplish in his first term that deserves to finish? He didn't. I can argue.
Well, if we
didn't start anything,
if we remember,
you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
That's I remember that.
I remember that.
I remember that.
That's the only way you can find room to pay for it.
That's when he wanted to cut Social Security.
Right.
So what job is he finishing? I mean,
well, you know what? Maybe Zeke Miller can give us some more. Maybe Zeke Miller can help us figure this out because
cool.
So AP actually this is probably one of the few podcasts we've done, episodes that we've done that we actually mostly, I believe, are using more mainstream sources. So Brad, I saw your message, but you did say by finishing the job he means well. Yeah. That's probably definitely what he means. Let's see though if Zeke has anything to add to this. So Biden announces 2024 re-election bid. Let's finish this job. So Zeke writes. No, we're not going to see that. There we go. President Joe Biden yesterday formally announced that he is running for re-election in 2024, asking voters to give him one more time to finish this job and extend the run of America's oldest president for another 4 years. Biden, who will be 86 at the end of his second term, is betting his first-term legislative achievements and more than 50 years of experience in Washington will count for more than concerns over his age. He plans a smooth path to winning his party's nomination with no serious Democratic challengers. And you're going to go into that next segment.
Yep.
Because he's done some shit already to make that so.
Yep.
And I'm sure you guys are smart that you also know what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but he's still set for a hard-fought struggle to retain the presidency in a bitterly divided nation. In his first public appearance yesterday since the announcement, Biden offered a preview of how he plans to navigate the dual roles of president and presidential candidate, using a speech to building trade union members to highlight his accomplishments and undercut his GOP rivals while showing voters he remained focused on his day job.
Union fucking... He fucking got them to... Whatever. Like he fucking is a strike killer, straight up. He killed the strike.
Right. But actually you make a good point. He brought union members to a speech. Where's the solidarity?
Right.
Did we forget what happened to the railroad workers a couple of months ago? Like, anyway, this is the argument that people are saying that there's not going to be a revolution in this country at all because there is no solidarity amongst labor.
Greeted with chants of "Let's go, Joe" from a raucous crowd of building trade union. Like, oh my god. Anyway, paid actors. They mean
right. A key base of Democratic support.
It's why they pander to them.
Biden showcased the tens of thousands of construction jobs being created since he took office that are supported by legislation he signed into law. Can we ask which one?
Wrong.
Can we ask which one?
Wrong. Like, no.
We, you and I, together, we're turning things around and we're doing it in a big way. Biden said, it's time to finish the job. Finish the job. Biden's campaign announcement, which we just saw, comes on the 4-year anniversary of when he declared for the White House in 2019, promising to heal the soul of a nation amid the turbulent presidency of Donald Trump, a goal that has remained elusive. Yeah. I said we are in battle for the soul of America, and we still are, Biden said. The question we are facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. We have less under you now. We don't have abortion rights anymore. We're still not able to vote for independent parties, for party candidates,
right?
Because Democrats have actively worked to get them off ballots in states. That's just a couple of things that I thought of in terms of like
in like
less
2 seconds
freedom. And so but anyway, while the prospect of seeking re-election has been a given for most modern presidents, that's not always been the case for Biden. A notable swath of Democratic voters has indicated they would prefer he not run, in part because of his age. And not policy. Okay. Biden has called those concerns totally legitimate, but he did not address the issue head on in his launch video. Yet few things have unified Democratic voters like the prospect of Trump returning to power, and Biden's political standing within his party stabilized after Democrats notched a stronger than expected performance in last year's midterm elections, which actually were very abysmal, by the way, for midterm. But anyway, the president is set to run again on the same themes that buoyed his party last fall, particularly on preserving access to abortion, which again, as I said,
codified. They could have done that anytime. Yes. Oh,
so
terrible.
As I said, I'm being calm right now, but as I said, I can really rage at this or just start crying. Any thoughts so far, Reef?
Dude.
What?
Any thoughts so far?
No.
Before I continue with this,
just fucking buckle up for more stupidity.
Yeah.
And that's
anyway,
pretty much it. So
let's continue.
Okay.
Here we go. As the contours of the campaign began to take shape, Biden plans to run on his record. Okay. He spent the first 2 years as president combating the coronavirus pandemic and pushing through major bills such as the bipartisan infrastructure package and legislation to promote high-tech manufacturing and climate measures, which we all know is shit.
Yep.
But the president also has multiple policy goals and unmet promises from his first campaign that he's asking voters to give him another chance to fulfill. So I'm actually going to go into this for student loans.
Yeah.
So just buckle up for that.
Yep.
Let's finish this job. I know we can, Biden said in the video, repeating a mantra he said a dozen times during his State of the Union address in February.
And before the camera rolled, and over again, so he could actually say it and not seem incoherent babbling. So,
right.
Yes.
Vice President Kamala Harris, who is featured prominently alongside Biden in the video, held a political rally at Howard in Washington yesterday evening.
Fucking sounded drunk.
She probably was drunk or on some kind of meds.
That was what we heard earlier. I think it was the macro and the micro and the future and the past.
Yesterday evening, in support of abortion access, kicking off her own efforts to support the re-election effort. Saying she's proud to run for re-election with President Joe Biden, Harris added, "Our hard-won freedoms are under attack, and this is a moment for us to stand and fight." In the video, Biden speaks over brief clips and photographs of key moments in his presidency, snapshots of diverse Americans, and flashes of outspoken Republican foes, including Trump, DeSantis, and Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. He exhorted supporters that this is our moment to defend democracy, stand up for our personal freedoms, stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights. Biden also plans to point to his work over the past 2 years, shoring up American alliances, leading a global coalition to support Ukraine's defenses against Russia's invasion, and returning the U.S. to the Paris Climate Accord. But public support in the U.S. for Ukraine has softened in recent months, and some voters question the tens of billions of dollars in military and economic assistance flowing to Kyiv. Yeah. The president also faces lingering criticism over his administration's chaotic 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Y'all forgot.
Remember that was a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Nearly after 20 years of war, which undercut the image of competence he aimed to portray, and he's the target of GOP attacks over his immigration and economic policies.
Which they should like.
We
covered this as well.
Right. And they should. Because and again, we're not giving any credence to the Republican Party because we know they're way worse. That being said, Biden has capped or made worse a lot of these economic and immigration policies that the party has sworn that they're better at, in contrast to the Republicans. And we have talked about this before. Anyway, as a candidate in 2020, Biden pitched voters on his familiarity with the halls of power in Washington and his relationships around the world. But even back then, he was acutely aware of voters' concerns about his age. No one gives a fuck about your age, dude. Everyone cares about what you're going to do. Look, I view myself as a bridge, not as anything else, Biden said in March 2020, as he campaigned in Michigan with younger Democrats, including Harris, Booker, and Whitmer. There's an entire generation of leaders you saw stand behind me. They're the future of this country. 3 years later, the president, now 80, Biden and allies say this time in office has demonstrated that he saw himself as more of a transformational than a transition.
Yeah. Also, I love Cory Booker coming to the rescue.
Okay. Still, many Democrats would prefer that Biden didn't run again. A recent poll from the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research shows just 47% of Democrats say they want him to seek a second term, up from 37% in February. And Biden's verbal and occasional physical stumbles have become fodder for critics trying to cast him as unfit for office.
You know the thing.
During a routine physical in February, Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, declared him healthy, vigorous, and fit to handle his White House responsibilities. Sure, he is. Well, hours after Biden's announcement, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre initially refused to say whether the president planned to serve all 8 years if elected to a second term. She later clarified by tweet that I wanted to be sure that I didn't go into 2024 more than is appropriate under the law, but I can confirm that if reelected, POTUS would serve all 8 years. Aides acknowledged that while some in his party might prefer an alternative to Biden, there is anything but consensus within their diverse coalition on who that might be. And they insist that when Biden is compared with whomever the GOP nominates, Democrats and independents will rally around Biden. Right.
They might fuck around and find out.
Well, we can talk about that, but well, I don't know about that, honestly.
Oh, I'm just saying about compared to like they're saying that they're going to coalesce around Biden. Like they might need to check themselves before they wreck themselves, you know?
Well, I'll say this now. I just feel like in general, I just feel people just feel they didn't have a choice. And I think Biden, and I'm sure you're gonna talk about this next segment, is basically creating so it gives the fear in people that there is no choice. And they're gonna just use Trump as the boogeyman once, assuming that it is Trump.
Well, that's what they're hoping. They're hoping that it's going to be Trump. Hoping.
Well, either him or DeSantis.
Either way, same difference. Like,
you know, but it's like DeSantis, Trump is the boogeyman, so you have to vote for us because, you know, what's up, Jesse? Thank you for filling in that last week.
Yeah.
You know, just it's all again once based on fear and not of conviction of withholding your vote to get tangibles. Like, again, just the issue, like a lot of what the stuff they're talking about, you know, especially in this article, is nothing economic, haven't mentioned anything economic or just kind of glazed over it to kind of give the illusion of, oh, we actually did shit.
Yeah.
You know, and meanwhile, people feel it. People know what's going on. But again, it's the idea of like, oh, we're not going to have choice because Trump or DeSantis is just so bad that we can't do any worse than that.
I saw Keith Olbermann telling RFK today to like drop out, that we can't have this if we're going to beat Trump. No dissent, you know?
Right.
Like unity, you know?
Yeah.
So
but anyway, for now, the 76-year-old, he's only 76?
Yep.
Ugh.
Yep.
You could have fooled me. But is the favorite to emerge as the Republican nominee, creating the potential of a historic sequel to the bitterly fought 2020 campaign. But Trump faces significant hurdles of his own, including the designation of being the first former president to face criminal charges. Not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
The remaining GOP field is volatile, with DeSantis emerging as an early alternative to Trump. DeSantis' stature is also in question, however, amid questions about his readiness to campaign outside of his increasingly Republican-leaning state. To prevail again, now this is the key thing, and I think we really need to hit home on this. To prevail again, Biden will need the alliance of young voters and who else?
Black voters. You need them.
Particularly women.
And you along
with blue collar Midwesterners. Now, Reef.
Yeah. Same people Hillary lost to.
We talked about a certain event that happened in this region of the country.
Where they straight up poison people because of things the Biden, and they're still not doing anything about it to fix any of it. I mean, this could be like 8 different things, but
the argument that we have made and other people have made is that Biden did not go, has not mentioned it because he's already ridden enough as a red state, so he wasn't going to win it anyway. Where I thought he mentioned that he was a president for all people and he was trying to.
But that's who he needs. That's who he needs. He needs that.
Right.
So we'll see how he panders to that. That's what you're going to find. How will he do that, you think? How will he do that and get young voters and black voters? That's going to be tough.
Right.
Good luck.
Moderates and disaffected Republicans who helped him win in 2020. He'll have to again carry the so-called blue wall in the upper Midwest while protecting his position in Georgia and Arizona, longtime GOP strongholds he narrowly won last time.
Bullshit.
Biden spoke Tuesday with Democratic governors about his re-election plans. Excuse me. While aides and allies briefed key political groups, grassroots organizers, and state party officials on strategy, the campaign said. The president was set to huddle later this week in Washington with prominent party donors. Biden's re-election bid comes as the nation weathers uncertain economic crosscurrents. Inflation is ticking. No, it's not. After hitting the highest rate in a generation, but unemployment is at a 50-year low, and the economy is showing signs of resilience despite Federal Reserve interest rate hikes. If voters let Biden finish the job, inflation will continue to skyrocket, crime rates will rise, more fentanyl will cross our open borders, children will continue to be left behind, and American families will be worse off, Republican National Committee Chair Ronald McDaniel said in a statement. Presidents typically try to delay their re-election announcements to maintain the advantages of incumbency and skate above the political fray for as long as possible while their rivals trade jabs. But a leg up offered by being in the White House can be rickety. 3 of the last second presidents have lost re-election, most recently Trump in 2020. Biden's announcement is roughly consistent with the timeline followed by then President Barack Obama, who waited until April 2011 to declare for a second term and didn't hold a re-election rally until May 2012. Trump launched his re-election bid on the day he was sworn in 2017.
Yep.
So, as you pulled for me,
we got
last night.
We got Rolling Stone. I'm in to do what I can make sure that the president is reelected. This is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is here, just putting it in for the shoving stack for Biden.
To go back to that tweet a second, and I said this by tweet yesterday. I appreciate him not running a campaign in order to sheepdog us to Biden later. Thank you for not wasting our time on that.
Yeah.
But that being said, the fact that, Marianne Williamson, as much issues that we have with her, is probably more closely aligned to Bernie in regards to ideology and policy, not going for her. So he's doing what is safe because now he's very comfortable. He's probably close to retirement and he doesn't want to fuck his money up. So, he's going to be a good little boy and do what he's supposed to do until that time comes. And then he will just walk away with a boatload of cash. He has a new book out and people are still going to love him regardless. And there are already people who are saying that he is not a sellout and a fake and all of that. But, you're once again voting for the person that is very much against you on pretty much every ideological policy that you could possibly imagine. So fuck you, Bernie. Appreciate you taking this stance right now. You just showed what a cuck you really are. So thank you for that.
Robert Durden, Joe Biden announced his run for president yesterday. Bernie immediately endorses today. It's just literally a day. That's all it took. Right? David Moss on Twitter. Bernie Bernied the new Bernie faster than he Bernied himself. Bernie? Question mark? So here's Nick of Revolutionary Blackout Network, who I think is on now with Jose Vega. My meme was true. Bernie Sanders just endorsed Biden. Dude couldn't fucking wait. Haha. Live footage of Bernie Sanders rushing to endorse Joe Biden again. So yeah, he nailed that.
But you got this, which I think Tara hit the nail on the head.
Sums it up real well.
Very well. And I love her for saying this.
Yep.
And she says, Joe Biden announced he's running for president today for 2024. Someone asked me how I felt. How would you feel? My monster is now America's monster. This is the year not to vote blue no matter who. And to the other candidates running that may not win, if you end up endorsing Joe Biden just to hold power, that will put you on the wrong side of history forever.
And you probably were already there already. So, you know.
So buckle up for what will be a very long, tiresome, and honestly depressing. The next year and a half is going to be something. So, as I said, I had no pleasure in doing this. I watched the ad yesterday, and
you were like, I hate it. Hated it.
Literally, it was, yeah, it was literally just like, I can't.
Yep.
I couldn't, you know,
Come on, man.
and
give me a little break here.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
well, and especially,
but it gets worse.
Oh, it gets
well. I mean,
much worse.
But at least for this, it's kind of like a "we told you so" moment.
Yep.
That we warned people about. That people were like, "Nah, whatever. It was not going to happen." But
y'all are gonna like the way you look on this one
too. But just to kind of show how Biden is really.
Like full of delicious petty vitamins for us. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Oopsie poopsie. No debates. Oopsies. Like, you know, I think we tried to warn people that this was not gonna happen, and particular INN members went and told that to their faces, and still people didn't listen. So
I just love the idea of like people were like, I don't like Marianne, but she needs to debate Joe Biden because we really need to uplift the issues.
Like, oh no, that's it's good because they get on the debate stage. You mean like who's gonna let you do what? Right? What primary? What guys? Do you not know how this works? Like, so this is from Robert Spencer, PJ Media. Just when dim debates would have been interesting, DNC says no debates. Oopsies. No debates. No democracy. So let's get into it a bit. So here's Savvy Sabs. Democratic Party has no plans to sponsor primary debates. Hate to say, I told you so. I don't hate to say it. We all told y'all motherfuckers everywhere. Like, well, this is disappointing news.
No, it's not. It was expected.
No, it was expected. The Washington Post reported Thursday that the National Democratic Party has said it will support Biden's re-election, and it has no plans to sponsor primary debates. It's understandable. The Dems have a president of sorts, and so they're counting on the power of incumbency to help their superannuated kleptocrat get over the top again. However, it's also immensely disappointing because after years and years of Democratic presidential debates being dreary displays of candidates trying to out-socialist one another, 2024 Democratic primary debates would have actually had something to offer.
I love that word out socialist, which in a way is true.
No,
it's true.
No.
Or what they determine as socialist.
Yeah, labels are bad. This is like moderate corporate speak here. Like,
yeah.
It's like when the right wingers think that fucking Biden is a socialist, let alone communist. I just laugh at them, you know. But it's almost the opposite. It's like they're trying to like out capitalist each other. So Biden has two challengers, as much as some other articles would have you believe he doesn't. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. And don't leave out Afro Man. When Kennedy announced his candidacy on Wednesday, USA Today reported that RFK immediately had the support of 14% of voters who backed President Joe Biden in 2020. According to USA Today, Suffolk University poll, Williamson at 5, and another 13% were undecided. USA Today noted that is surprising strength for a candidate who has a famous political name, but is now known mostly as the champion of a debunked conspiracy theory blaming childhood vaccines for autism. So
Why that how they didn't mention anything regarding his stance on Ukraine though?
No.
I figured that would be the bigger issue versus COVID.
Well,
stuff.
his stance on Ukraine isn't great either. So you think that they're probably okay with his stance?
Probably.
Yep. KSW were in Ukraine for all the right reasons. RFK Jr. Yep. Also his friend Joe Biden. My good friend Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you just called out certain people.
Yes, I did. Even though I love her to death, it's like that. Nope, that's not okay. Nope.
No. Well, can you explain why for the people in the chat? You explained this to me perfectly, but for those in the chat, explain why that's not okay.
Well, I mean, he's a rapist and warmonger, and you shouldn't be friends with one of those. I think that's kind of like you're allowed to keep better bedfellows, and it's not just because we disagree. Like Kim Iverson tried to say that was
it's the same thing. It's like Joe Biden is my good friend.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. It's political pandering at the very best. At the very best, you can say he's lying for political points. Like, not acceptable. Not like. It's literally my good friend Joe. While you're running a primary against him, he's not your friend.
Right.
Like,
no, primaries is when you are meant to draw blood. Now, even Kamala, to be fair, did that initially with Joe Biden. In the debate.
It's a primary. It's a debate.
Right. It's a debate. Like even she went for blood in a way that Bernie didn't. No. And then obviously she capitulated later. When when they anointed her to be vice president. But at least early when she thought she could be president, she tried to knock Biden out. So, and she did that then, whereas Bernie did not go for the jugular then.
So USA Today's confident use of the word debunked, however, can't mask a growing suspicion among an increasing number of Americans that the authorities aren't being honest with us. Okay. The COVID vaccine debacle, with what was originally touted as a single shot that would protect you from a deadly disease, becoming multiple shots and boosters that carried side effects that were often worse than COVID itself, only fueled that suspicion. So the establishment media's confidence that voters will dismiss RFK Jr. because they dislike this vaccine skepticism may be whistling in the dark.
No.
Yep.
I don't think.
I mean, I agree there. Like.
Yeah. But also, I think
he's missing a bit of it. Yes.
Yeah, but he's a Kennedy. At the end of the day, he's part of a political dynasty in this country. Like, even though I really did not know of him particularly, but growing up in Massachusetts, like we know who the Kennedys are. So, so it's like his name in of itself. I think even if he might have shitty takes, people are going to listen to him. Just given his name alone, people will say, okay, I'll listen to like it's Kennedy after. So
Kennedy also said something extremely interesting in his announcement that he was running. My mission over the next 18 months of this campaign and throughout my presidency will be to end the corrupt merger of state and corporate power that is threatening now to impose a new kind of corporate feudalism in our country. Well, yes, and no one else is talking with this kind of clarity and consistency about the kind of collusion that we saw in the Twitter files between the massive corporations and the government, not even Donald Trump.
Yeah. KSW also said in chat, RFK also said, don't say fascist about Ukraine. Even mainstream media was calling out Ukraine Nazi problem, but went silent in 2014 after the neolibs coup. Yeah.
It's thus entirely, I mean, he also has ties to the CIA through family connections, so not great either. It's thus entirely within the realm of possibility that RFK's initial 14 could increase considerably with some national exposure. Some have been touted him as the new post-Trump populist, but he is unlikely to appeal to many lefties, as he still embraces the climate change hoax and much more of the left agenda. Still, he poses an articulate, informed alternative to stumbling, bumbling, fumbling old Joe. Kennedy-Biden debates would be a wonder to behold, just to see RFK eviscerate the senescent corruptocrat and expose his mendacious posturing. Bro, just use normal words. You can just use normal ones. Like, I know you're trying to be fancy, but
I was trying to
be incredibly specific. Right? Yes. Yeah. Add in Marianne Williamson, and the proceedings would get even more fun. The self-help guru and author of A Return to Love got some attention during her 2020 candidacy for her unforgettable quips. No, very forgettable. I guarantee you everyone forgot these, which include, "You need to not apologize for being brilliant, talented, gorgeous, rich, or smart." Collin, did you remember that? Did you remember she said that? I watched every debate. Did you remember? No. Anyone else in chat remember? No. The reasons were such fertile ground for the dark forces of such lies and social manipulation is that we're disassociated with the genuine light of self-awareness. Did you remember that one? Anyone remember that one? No. There's a lot of truth to that, is there? And a Biden-Kennedy-Williamson debate could be a marvelous show featuring the garrulous old liar rattling on about he got arrested for trying to visit Nelson Mandela in prison, or about how his son Beau was killed in Iraq, Kennedy calling out state and corporate fascism, and Williamson waxing philosophical. That would be a shit show. That's what that's called. Like,
notice what you say, like, I'm not sure. I think there may be some sarcasm in this.
Yes.
And I want to give him that, but it just comes off to me as the idea of, like,
they tried this.
Not be like entertainment. It's not something that we should be.
Well, he's also trying to say that, like, these people on a debate stage would somehow push Biden left. That's part of it too. And, like, that's not possible.
Right. But for me, it's the idea of, like, debates should not be an entertaining thing. This is not like watching a primetime drama show. This should be something that really should be engaging as far as people to kind of watch, to listen to ideas being presented that you probably will not hear otherwise, normally given the channels that we have. So the idea, and I think, unfortunately, Trump exacerbated this a lot, but you can make the argument, like, this has been happening for a while, like, people watch debates in the same way. Like, I remember back, what was it, like, during the 2020 election, like, people watching debates like football game, like people are having watch parties and all that kind of stuff, which, like,
I mean, it is a thing that you should be doing that for, and, like, yes, it can be entertaining, but
it can be entertaining, but that shouldn't be the primary focus of it. It's not something like, it's not like the Super Bowl. Like,
I mean, it has far more impact. I feel like it should, but that's not what they're using it for ratings and crap. But so Marianne Williamson, with the fascists at the door, the last thing we should do is limit the conversation about how to defeat them. The assumption that Joe Biden is necessarily our best bet in 24 should be vigorously challenged. He should face his primary challengers in a meaningful debate, says the strongly worded letter by Marianne Williamson. What are you going to do about it? Like,
nothing.
You can't, like, what? You going to sign a petition that they won't listen to?
Actually, I did see online that there is a petition from change.org about
regarding that, but they will ignore you. There's no reason they need to, like, unless you're going to get in the streets, which they're unwilling to do, most of them, because their Afghans aren't quite perfect. Like, they didn't charge their crystals well enough. Anyway, she was on the Breakfast Club, and
we're probably going to get demonetized for this, but
I know we can go back in time before copyright is a
I
thing.
think the last time we did play something on the Breakfast Club, we got demonetized or at least got limited for this. So
we'll see.
But I think so. Again, so not to kind of call you guys for financial support, but we find that a lot of our streams
Videos are
do get
demonetized,
demonetized
yeah.
or get limited monetization because we actually do want to show you stuff like this. You know, so if you want to help us out financially with a super chat or something, thank you. We appreciate it.
And once
But
again,
yeah, we're gonna
asking
demonetize
for
really
your
quick.
financial support.
Yeah.
But we here don't care. So
Yeah.
so we'll try every trick to try and avoid that, but we're doing this for you guys.
Yeah. People should see this
but
kind
yeah.
of stuff. It's important.
Yeah.
This is fair use. We are covering it. We're covering it for a reason.
I'm running as a Democrat, but I certainly think of myself as an independent thinker, and we need
No, you're not.
more Democrats with independent thinking. This
That isn't possible.
No.
codependent relationship with the DNC where they've just
Which you are
decided that it's
enabling.
Biden.
You're enabling that codependency. That's what you're enabling.
You should be. The Democrats claim to be the party that is protecting democracy.
It's not.
So why is it that Marianne Williamson, even Bobby Kennedy, now we're like invisibilized? I heard
That's not a word. Like,
David Axelrod on television
oh, Axelrod of the Axe Files. Why are you watching David Axelrod?
last night say Biden has no challenger, and Anderson Cooper didn't challenge him. We're all supposed to just do whatever they say. So the idea of a democratic process at a time like this, when the fascists are literally at the door, that we're not supposed to even be having a real conversation about, like, maybe what should we be presenting as the agenda to the American people in 2024? First,
they told you they are presenting Joe Biden. That's what they are presenting. And because I don't know if you remember this, Collin, but there was a particular court case that said, among many things, but said that essentially the Democratic Party could decide whoever they wanted to behind a smoke-filled door, like
door,
right?
Yeah, smoke-filled room.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, yes. So, I mean, I don't know if she remembers that that's possible, that they can do whatever they want.
She remembers that, and this is just an act.
Which is why we all told them that they should be running independent if they were serious.
Right. And to clarify, because I'm seeing a lot of people being like, third parties are not going to do well, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not the idea.
Yeah.
Like, of why we need to elevate third parties or independent candidates. It's the idea of them getting federal funding, so which is what, 5%?
Yeah.
5%. Yeah, for them to be able to get federal funding to fund their programs, and then to elevate the masses in terms of policies that they're trying to promote and building it up from there. It's not to win. It's to garner support and solidarity among ideas. That's the idea.
Right. And then it's to suck those ideas into the Democratic Party to try to vote for you.
Right. Because this is what happened. Like, look at what happened with Bernie. Like, all the ideas that he brought to the table, like Medicare for all, and every candidate under the sun was like, yeah, I support Medicare for all. Like, what happened with that?
Yeah.
Nothing. And I think it kind of died with essentially forced to vote.
Yeah.
Like, they took that idea and they just rammed it in the Democratic Party and they neutralized it. So now it's a non-issue.
Well,
we're not even talking about Medicare for all anymore.
No.
So at least if you take it away from the duopoly, that's something you're still keeping for the people to be able to fight upon grassroots style on the ground locally and statewide, But when you give it...
You want to hear who got upset? Someone got real upset at this. Made a whole grumpy face and everything.
Crystal, what do you think?
This lady, just buckle in.
Kalinsky.
This is This is rough.
Crystal Kalinsky.
Yeah.
On the eve of Joe Biden's reelection announcement, one thing has become incredibly clear. The media does not want you to think you have any other options. In article after article, they declare that Biden has no, quote, serious primary opponent, as if that is up to them to decide. Their Democratic primary polls reflect laundry lists of candidates who have no intention of running, while leaving the actual declared candidates off of the list. And sometimes the media, they just outright lie, all in service of making sure
she would know
that as much as the Democratic primary base wants to move on from Biden, they are not allowed to even evaluate the existing alternatives. The very same tactics they used against every anti-establishment Democratic candidate, from Bernie to Yang to Tulsi.
Wait, stop. Back up like 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds.
Every anti-establishment Democratic candidate, from Bernie to Yang to Tulsi, they are all back with a vengeance. The media and the Democrats.
No, they're not. No. Bernie.
They are not allowed to even evaluate the existing alternatives. The very same tactics they used against every anti-establishment Democratic candidate, from Bernie to Yang to Tulsi, they are all back with a vengeance.
Yes.
But when we talked about third parties as an option.
No.
What did she fucking say?
No, it's not.
That option wasn't available.
Yep.
That option was that was a no-go. But the alternative is the alternative that she wants, that's an issue.
Yeah.
So notice that.
And Tulsi, she mentioned Tulsi too. I'm sure her friends are upset about that.
The Democratic Party have spent the last 8 years waxing poetic about democracy, but at every turn, they show their contempt towards voters and the actual democratic process. No one has been more smeared and erased in this process than Marianne Williamson, and it's no accident that this effort has escalated just as she's begun to show a bit of real momentum. In recent weeks, Marianne has polled as high as 14% in battleground states, 10% nationally, over 20% with young.
Which states?
Yeah.
Which
voters. This enthusiasm of young voters has become particularly visible on their platform of choice. That would be TikTok. As Ryan Grimm documented, Williamson has become an outright sensation there. Her videos and fan accounts, they rack up millions of views, sharing her comments on politics, on life, and her critique of Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. The enthusiasm for Marianne by anyone on any platform, though, simply can't be tolerated by the Biden team and their allies who dare to call themselves journalists. Take a look at this article that was flagged by Katie Halper. Reuters wrote an entire piece that was supposed to be just a completely neutral listing of the current and potential 2024 contenders on both the Democratic and Republican sides. It's titled Fact Box 2024 U.S. presidential election. Who is in, who is out, and who is still thinking about it. But this so-called fact box contains the opposite of facts. They included everyone from Asa Hutchinson, who polls at 0%, to Chris Sununu, who polls at 0%, to Mike Pompeo, who polls at 0% and has already said he is not running. To my surprise, they actually did include RFK Jr., although they weirdly didn't bold his name the way that they did all the other candidates for some reason. Conspicuously left off this list altogether, however, was Marianne Williamson, in spite of the fact that she is polling higher than the vast majority of contenders that they did bother to name.
Who cares? Who cares? It's TikTok. Who cares? That doesn't equal actual engagement.
Simply cannot believe that someone who calls themselves a political journalist doesn't know who Marianne Williamson is. She's been in public life for decades. She was a candidate last time around as well. The only realistic
explanation. You forget how that happened? Did you forget how that worked out? She lost incredibly badly.
Right, but here's the thing with Marianne. If she did her due diligence and post when she dropped out, was in the public eye, constantly tweeting, constantly, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like what Bernie did in 2016 to 2020, got his name out there, whatever. That'll be one thing, Marianne, she's been around, but not in the degree, where she made herself visible, I think, at least mainstream, where Like, I mean, in this space, we know of her only because she has talked at certain events. She has gone on different people's channels for interviews and all that kind of stuff. So we're familiar with her in that regard, but not like normal Joe Schmo, like who you might work with or whatever else. Like, she hasn't made herself like credible in that way. And Crystal thinks that, like, just given the fact that she was in, you know, she happened to be like a candidate back in 2020, that people are going to remember who she is, and like even like some of the stuff she said. No, and Crystal knows that.
Yeah,
you know. But again, it's just the idea of like, I get to gain from being, you know, like I get to gain from our campaign, you know, to probably get more views for you, probably getting exclusive access for you, probably to build your sub base so you're able to get that advertising revenue like your fiance now. Kyle. Shout out to Kyle, but fuck you. But
of
no,
this omission
like,
is
yeah.
Is that it was an intentional lie, motivated.
Also, keep in mind who they were willing to like pull information from: Ryan Grimm and Katie Halper. Like, that's who they got left. You know,
either by arrogant contempt towards Marianne or to curry favor with the Biden regime,
which I have.
Now, Marianne herself replied to this so-called journalist on Twitter.
I do not exist, or that I am not running. No, they don't feel like you exist or that you're running.
Are you under the impression I do not exist or that I am not running? Under pressure, Reuters was forced to do a stealth edit of the article to acknowledge that Marianne Williamson does in fact exist and is in fact running for president. As if it—
Yeah, so is the Tiger King. Like, that's their point. That's the game they're playing, is that you're not a serious candidate. And neither is RFK in their eyes.
It isn't enough that they ignore Marianne unless they're smearing her, of course. The media's most damaging tactic is their acceptance and propagation of an anti-democracy status quo, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party. If the Republican Party was planning to have no debates and just simply to anoint Donald Trump, all of these supposed guardians of democracy, they would be rending their garments and melting.
Except they did. Do you forget that that's exactly what they did when he ran a second time? Like, they had challengers. They ignored the challengers. Everyone was like, okay.
Not even ignored. They straight up changed the financing rules for them not to be able to go on the debate stage. They did that to Tulsi. They did that to Mike Gravel.
Yes.
You know, constantly.
They fucked over Dennis Kucinich too when he tried this. Like, this isn't the tactic.
Down about authoritarianism and fascism. But when the DNC rigs the primary states for Biden and plans 0 debates, they just accept this as a matter of course. Of course they would do this. The Washington Post turned in a perfect example of this with their big article about Biden getting set to announce his reelect. In it, they assert with zero judgment that, quote, the National Democratic Party has said it will support Biden's reelection and it has no plans to sponsor primary debates. They go on to offer the standard line about how Biden faces no, quote, serious challenge. This total shutdown on public debate is even more detrimental to democracy since Biden has sat for far fewer interviews and held fewer press conferences than any president since Ronald Reagan. He remains in hiding from the American people and the press. They just accept it. Democracy dies in darkness, right, guys? When Marianne does get coverage, it shows why the press and the Biden team are so desperate to hide her very existence. In a recent cable news appearance, one of the rare times she was actually invited.
Pause a second. I argue that they're trying to hide Kennedy, honestly.
Yeah. Much more so than her.
Much more so than her. Because at least, again, Kennedy has the name recognition that he actually can do some shit. You know, Marianne is
since launching her bid. She had a lot to say about elite Democratic failures. Take a listen.
I think that one of the things we've talked about here already is that things are not okay. We have 39% of Americans who now report, 44% of millennials, that they have skipped meals in order to pay their rent. We have 1 in 4 Americans who live with medical debt. We have 64% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck. 60% of Americans who could not absorb a $400 unexpected expenditure. Look at those facets that I just talked to you about, and you talked to me about mental health. We talk about the mental health crisis. We need to talk about what's at the root of that, and to talk about how much of that comes from chronic economic anxiety. We have a political class. We have a political class that is not planning any fundamental economic reform. And I'm running for president. I'm running as a Democrat because incremental change is not enough. When you have a lack of universal health care, although we have it in every other advanced democracy has tuition-free college, which we had until the 1960s. I'm old enough, Allison. There was a time in this faraway land called the 1970s when the average American, there was a thriving middle class. The average American worker had decent benefits, could afford a home, could afford a car, could afford a yearly vacation, could afford to send one parent to keep one parent could stay home if they wished, and they could afford to send their kids to college. So no, people are not okay. And I'm running for president because we need a fundamental economic U-turn, not just incremental change. People need to have health care in this country, need to be able to go to college. People need the bandwidth to thrive. And if all a politician can say is, I'll help you survive an unjust system in the richest country in the world, something is wrong. We need someone.
Where have we heard this before?
Play the clip.
From outside that system.
Like it's burning
I was
again.
asking you to play. Yeah, I that's why I meant play the clip. Play burning. Like it's copy paste.
And literally.
To say
copy paste
should not be unjust. We need an economic U-turn, and that's what I will do if I'm elected president.
I mean, like she literally said, like, what was it? Like
universal health care, although we have it in every other advanced democracy has tuition-free college, which we had until the 1960s. I'm old enough, Allison. Average American, there was a thriving middle American worker, had decent benefits.
What was it?
Home, could afford a car, could afford a yearly vacation, could afford to send one parent to keep one parent could stay home if they wished, and they could afford to send their kids to college. So no, people are not okay. And I'm running for president because we need a fundamental economic U-turn, not just incremental change. People need to have health care in this country.
Incremental change.
People need the bandwidth to thrive. And if all a politician can say is, I'll help you survive an unjust system in the richest country in the world, something is wrong. We need someone from outside that system to say the system should not be unjust.
I agree. We should pick someone outside the system. So that's not you.
You're running in the system, however.
Right.
So that's the problem. And Indy brought up a good point. She brings nothing up as far as how she's going to defeat the corporatists that are in charge of both parties.
Yeah.
So, so that's really the main issue that Marianne is not going to get to. And that's actually something that Nick from RBN tried to get her to answer, and she couldn't.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to talk about how you're going to get rid of the capitalists that are essentially in charge of this country,
what are you
or
doing?
the system within that, get the fuck out of here.
It's not just system reform. It's like upheaval at this point. Like
need an economic U-turn, and that's what I will do if I'm elected president.
How?
Now, that clip has already racked up hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok. So you won't be surprised to learn Biden team trying to silence her there as well. According to Marianne campaign volunteer Tim Cox, TikTok moderators have banned at least 2 Marianne supporter accounts, Marianne Williamson for Prez and Lefty Takeover. These accounts had tens of thousands of followers, no terms of service violations, but they were spammed by Biden supporters, mass reporting them, according to Cox. Now, I spoke with the woman who runs the Marianne Williamson for Prez account, and she confirmed that this had indeed happened. She told me that, quote, the account is still banned.
They're just now complaining about deplatforming. Yet none of them have mentioned like Twitter files or like.
But just going off of that, like, because I was thinking about this probably yesterday.
Yeah.
If Marriott, like what Bernie, and I said this previous stream, so I'll say it again. What Bernie was able to do well was he had a good social media presence. So yeah, he worked within the Democratic Party in that, but what he was able to do outside of that was develop a good social media presence that he was still able to get his message out, in terms of the policies that he was for, especially targeted to young people, that still kept him viable.
Yeah.
You know, Marianne does not have that system. You know, it would have been beneficial to her if she tried to promote that or build that up since 2020.
Yeah.
But it's almost like now she's trying to catch up on for lost time. And basically now Crystal's like, oh, she's popular on TikTok. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, TikTok is very fleeting. You know, like, where is she, you know, in regards to Rumble? Where is she in regards to YouTube? Where is she in regards to all Rockfin? Like all these other, you know, alternative means of media that Marianne is not really utilizing. And I think really at this point, you know, people are not going to take her seriously to even have her on, you know, her shows at this point. But, you know, it's what I say all the time: control the means of the narrative. Marianne is not doing that in the same way like Chris Smalls, we've argued, is not doing that in regards to the Amazon labor movement. That's why the Uhuru movement is dangerous, according to, because they are, and we've had interviews with both Benny Hess and Akili and I, you know, they have these systems in place.
Yeah.
That they have their own media network, you know, here and in Africa, that they're able to put out and produce whatever they want to fucking produce.
Yeah.
That's why they're being targeted right now. Because they're able to say their own shit unapologetically and not have to go through the regular channels like Chris Smalls is doing right now, what Marianne primarily is doing right now, to try to elevate their message. You want to elevate your message, especially if you're more radically minded, start your own.
Yeah.
Or develop it on your own terms. Don't go through the mainstream media in order to do that. You know? So TikTok is shit.
Yeah.
Heard a single peek back from TikTok on why they took my account down. I broke no rules. These heavy-handed tactics reveal a Biden team much more nervous than their public bluster would have you believe. Now look, no one's going to deny it is exceptionally difficult to oust any incumbent president. However, this one does have some real vulnerabilities. Don't take my word for it. Just ask the voters. 73% of voters wish the current president would not run again. That includes a majority of Democrats. Only 1/3 of voters believe Biden deserves to be reelected, and majorities disapprove of his handling on every major issue that was tested in a recent CNN poll. Majorities say he is not honest, does not care about people like them, and cannot work effectively with Congress. But while Americans might be dissatisfied with Biden across a range of issues, the biggest questions are about his basic capacity to serve in the office at all. 65% say he doesn't inspire confidence, and 67% say he doesn't have the stamina and sharpness to serve effectively as president of the United States. Who can blame them for wondering if the oldest U.S. president in history is really up to the task?
So thank you all. God bless you all. Let's go lick the world. Let's get it done. Representative Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie?
We're gonna go lick the world.
Jackie, I didn't think she was going to be here. More than half the women in my cabinet, more than half the people in my cabinet, more than half the women in my administration are women. I'll either be rolling an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out. Come on, help.
Wait.
And so Biden's cronies don't want to contrast with anyone who can articulate a perspective. Don't want to
the guy who's more than half the women in my administration are women. I'll either be rolling an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Even look at him. Like,
I don't think he did, but it sounded mighty close to him saying the N-word. That's what
that's exactly what it was.
Biden's cronies don't want to
close.
contrast with anyone who can articulate a perspective and who is unafraid to expose the failures of the elite political and media class. I am reminded that Dianne Feinstein was able to hold on for her last re-election by avoiding interviews, debates, town halls, anything that would expose her to constituents, just how unable to do the job she really was. The Biden camp here is similarly desperate to hide their guy and persuade everyone that there is no actual contest. Whatever you think, any of these candidates, Biden, RFK Jr., and Marianne, at the very least, we deserve actual debates. demand that the Democratic Party live up to the bare minimum of their pro-democracy rhetoric. And Sagar, it's just amazing to me that they feel so entitled to decide for themselves who's a serious candidate, that they just leave her out entirely and think that's totally fine. Don't include. Hey guys, ready or not?
No.
Keep in mind, this is the same bitch that was making the case for Biden several years ago.
Yeah. As opposed to like a third party candidate. Yeah, we got to stop Trump. Right. So we'll get back to this article. That's precisely why the debates won't happen. The Democratic National Committee knows that Williamson is nutty and thinks Kennedy is nutty too. And it's well aware that the less the public sees the dementia patient who pretends to be president, the better. They're going with Biden for re-election, and they know they can only hurt his own chances by standing toe-to-toe against a man who can actually articulate a coherent sentence and defend his positions, as well as against a woman who, however loopy she may be, looks like Madame Curie next to old Joe. And so despite the fact that RFK, who has never been a national figure, immediately jumped to 14%, there will be no real Democratic race. There will just be a coronation, which is what a Democratic race is going to be anyway. No one should have ever expected that anything would be different. Okay?
Right.
Okay. After all, these people have made it abundantly clear that they don't really like disagreement and want to silence dissent. Why would they allow it within their own party?
Because they get results. That's what the squad has basically kowtowed.
Yep.
You know, any dissenting voices, they smash.
Yep. Smash.
So,
speaking of the squad,
not really the squad.
They're part of it, but yeah,
they're part of it for being complicit.
Yes, that's exactly the word I was looking for.
But I found this a very so I call it student loan headaches, and I call it that because in this article, thank you, from Political of all places, written by Michael Stratford, where he writes, Biden's next student loan headache, a cash crunch at the education department. Administration officials prepare for unprecedented restart of student loan payments amid customer service rollback. So, according to this guy, the headache is, the education department is going to get a lot of calls for people calling about their student loan.
They're not ready to steal people's money again. Like that's
right. The headache is not.
Jesus
the
Christ.
Headache is not. Biden promised us student loan forgiveness. So, I know I talk about student loans a lot, but as I said, I was in Miami last weekend. I was talking to my group there for this bachelor party that I went, and like one of the guys was still talking about the idea of like, Biden's going to cancel our loans. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. And I mean, I've been following this for the last few months, and as I've said to people, like, get your money together now, because the national emergency, like, we're no longer in a national emergency with COVID. The public health emergency is going to end within the next couple of weeks. So basically, any debt that has been close to default will be going after. And given that by then, there's no threat of COVID at all, the Supreme Court is under no obligation to uphold Biden's student loan forgiveness. Done. Especially now, as we're out of COVID. We're no longer in that emergency anymore. So please, I'm saying this to people who do have student loans, who have not been paying them, whatever. I feel for you, but make plans now, because we are going to start paying them back. Do not expect the Supreme Court to work in your favor. And this article is going to get into more shit as to more of what's going to happen so I'm doing this to prepare you all in terms of what is going to be happening. And I'm saying this now because I'm sure come summer, this will become a big story again. But anyway, a funding shortfall is forcing education department officials to cut customer service to student loan borrowers just as the agency prepares to send millions of Americans their first bills in more than 3 years. That doesn't sound like forgiveness to me.
Nope.
Right? Congress last year rejected the White House request for more money to administer the federal student loan program after Republicans balked at adding extra funds that could be used to implement President Joe Biden's student loan cancellation plan. At the same time, the agency's costs exploded as it implemented a range of new policies, such as expanding the student public service loan forgiveness program, doesn't do enough, and creating a new application process for canceling up to $20,000 of student loan debt. So basically, they spent a lot of money to basically get the information they should have on you on file anyway, which makes no sense. But anyhow, Education Department officials, congressional Democrats, and consumer advocacy groups are now worried that the Biden administration may not have enough money to smoothly transition borrowers back into repaying their debt when payments are set to resume later this year. So they're saying the mantra, you're going to start paying it back. You're going to start paying it back. You're going to start paying it back. So there is no talk of cancellation. So
yay.
Okay. All right. So the funding woes threatened to exacerbate the political pain of what was always going to be a tricky endeavor for Biden, sending millions of American student loan bills for the first time since their payments were suspended at the start of the pandemic in March 2020. Borrowers are set to face longer hold times to speak to their loan servicing company, potentially slower paperwork processing, and inducing call center hours. It is a slow-moving car crash, said Jared Bass, Senior Director for Higher Education at the Center for American Progress and a former Democratic appropriations staffer. Bass urged lawmakers to find a way to add money for administrating student aid programs even before Congress debates government-wide funding this fall. We see what's about to unfold, so let's just prevent it now and just step in and take preventative measures, he said. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona told House appropriators during a hearing last week that restarting payments will be an unprecedented undertaking that requires an all-hands-on-deck approach. Again, so it's like no cancellation of student debt or even the possibility they're restarting.
Yep.
Right? Never has this been done before where, depending on the decision of the Supreme Court, up to 43 million borrowers are going to start repaying, Cardona said. It's a huge lift for our team. I don't give a fuck about your team. I want my loans forgiven.
Yep.
And everyone else who has student loans too. The Biden administration has said publicly that the moratorium on payments will end this summer, with payments resuming 60 days after either the Supreme Court rules on student debt cancellation or June 30th, whichever comes first. But the Education Department is also contemplating a transition period that will push repayment well into the fall. Department officials have told loan servicers to prepare to resume charging interest on federal loans in September. So again, we've not been paying interest on our loans for the last 3 years. That's also going to start up again.
Oh, fun.
According to documents obtained by Political under public records requests. Officials are eyeing October as the first month in which any borrower will be required to make a payment, the documents show, noting the requirement that borrowers receive a billing statement of at least 21 days in advance of their due date. In addition, Education Department officials are planning a safety net period in which borrowers aren't penalized for missing payments once repayment begins, according to Free People familiar with the discussions.
But you're going to pay it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Officials have previously settled on a grace period for the first 90 days after payments are due. but they are now considering extending that flexibility to borrowers for as long as a year after repayment starts, according to 2 people familiar with internal discussions, who also cautioned that the plans are in flux and could change. The administration is looking at a range of other policies designed to make the student loan system more borrower-friendly amid the looming restarts of payments. For example, the Education Department last month directed loan services to stop collecting on borrower balances that total $100 or less and to write off those debts, according to one of the documents. This is an increase from the previous policy of writing off small balances under $25. But a cash-strapped budget for restarting payments remains a major obstacle for the administration. In a budget document released last month, the Education Department warned that the current level of funding for its student aid operations poses significant risks for implementing a smooth return for repayment. Already, the department has been forced to slash funding to federal student loan servicing companies by nearly 10%. As part of the cutbacks, Biden administration officials last month allowed the loan companies to curtail their call center operations by 10 hours each week, including eliminating all Saturday hours. Officials also informed the companies that they will not be penalized for failing to meet a performance standard in their contract relating to call wait times that cause borrowers to hang up before reaching a customer service representative. So basically,
So what about
all that?
What about the 10? What about the 10%? What about it? I mean,
why do you clip that?
But loan servicing companies by nearly 10%. What about the 10%? Like,
so
Indy's asking in chat.
Like, yeah. So, but it's basically like, so people who are gonna call within the next few months to try to figure out what they're going to do as far as student loan repayments are going to put it on hold forever, all in the name of doing shit that Biden promised that he would do, and is not doing it. Yep. This is basically what this article is saying. Student loan forgiveness is not going to happen. I've said that many times on this show.
At least
pretty much
who's in power now. So
right. So the department is deeply concerned. Oh, sorry. Wait. Yeah. Let me back up. Yeah, the department is deeply concerned about the lack of adequate annual funding made available to federal student aid this year, an agency spokesperson said in a statement to Politico. As the department has repeatedly made clear, restarting payment requires significant resources to avoid unnecessary harm to borrowers, such as cuts to servicing. We continue to urge Congress to fully fund President Biden fiscal year 24 budget requests, which will provide critical resources to FSA, the statement continued. At the same time, we will continue to work closely with services to prioritize providing services to borrowers as quickly and efficiently as possible. The administration is deliberating over how to restart student loan payments. Saying the mantra.
Yep.
Student loans are going to restart. As conservatives and businesses are ratcheting up pressure to get Biden to end the payment pause, which costs the government roughly $5 billion each month in foregone revenue. SoFi, a private student loan company, and the Mackinac Center, a conservative group, have each filed lawsuits to stop the payment pause, arguing that it's illegal and no longer properly linked to the pandemic emergency.
Yep.
On Capitol Hill, Republicans are pushing for a vote in the coming weeks on legislation to overturn Biden's student loan debt relief policies, including the pause on payments. Speaker Kevin McCarthy told also last week included a repeal of Biden's student loan policies as part of his opening package of policy concessions that House Republicans want in exchange for raising the debt limit. Progressives, meanwhile, are focusing on making sure the White House feels the pressure, to deliver on student loan debt cancellation before restarting payments.
What pressure?
Well-worded tweets.
Yes.
President Biden has persuasively argued that the only way to responsibly restart loan payments without unleashing an economic catastrophe is to broadly cancel student debt, said Michael Pierce, executive director of the Student Borrowing Protection Center Advocacy Group. The president cannot be baited into becoming America's debt collector in chief by his proponents. At the end of the day, his name goes on 40 million student loan bills.
And if you remember, in our first story this evening, he desperately needs the youth vote.
Right.
So
he needs the youth vote. He needs the black vote.
Yep.
He needs the suburban vote.
And that's
all of them
going to go
in
well
some
for
way,
them.
shape, or form as student loan debt.
Well, they'll also use it. They'll also use it as an electoral bludgeon. That like, if you elect us back, then we'll do it. Right.
Then we'll do it.
Yeah.
But you had 3 years to do something. And this is what I've been saying over and over again. If Biden was serious, because the reality was it was going to go to court anyway. You know, regardless of when he did it, it was going to be challenged. Biden tied student loan debt forgiveness to the HEROES Act, which is in relation to, you know, a public health emergency. And Biden pushed it back to last summer, got a challenge. And now basically, you know, they're basically all but telling you they have no plan. They're not going to, they don't have an alternative. It's just like, oh, fuck it. Just pay your loans back.
Yeah.
Right? So Gen Z, Biden's going to ask for your vote. Do not give it to him unless he gives you your money. Okay? But most of you are not going to do it anyway because a lot of you do not watch independent media. A lot of people are not going to report on this story until it happens. I've been warning you about this for months. Savvy to her credit has also warned you guys for months. I was just on a student loan debt panel with Savvy, Imani, and Case Study, a month ago talking about this?
Yep.
They're not going to do shit in terms of student loan debt cancellation. This was a ploy to get you guys to vote for Biden in the midterms. And now, then don't have a backup plan. They're not going to fight for you. Student loans, basically come fall, are going to be due. And if you choose to vote for Biden after this, because I know you and Jesse reported on these TikTok, like social media influencers who are trying to, you know, persuade you to vote for Biden now. Like, don't go for it. Like, this should be more than enough reason to be like, fuck the duopoly. We know the Republicans are already going to do shit. And you're essentially giving away your vote because Biden bad. I mean, Trump, well, both are bad, but Biden worse. No, Trump is worse, according to them. So, yeah. So I have nothing more to say. But again, like, I wanted to report on this story, and I know I've said this story multiple times on different occasions.
Yeah.
But again, I care for you guys, and I care for you, especially since this affects me too. I want my loans to be forgiven, and I don't have that much left to be forgiven, honestly. Right now, I think I have about 14 left. So potentially, depending on how they choose to do it, I might have my full loans forgiven. They're not going to do it, though. So again, Biden needs the young people's vote. And as you said, Reef, they're going to use that to be like, oh, well, we need you to have put all Democrats back in office again, and then we'll do it.
Yep.
So again, the fuck shit. But I'll finish the story and then I'll close this. Beyond the customer service, the department has already forced to reduce other efforts to ease borrowers back into repayment remaining in limbo. That includes extra outreach to populations of borrowers who are particularly at risk of falling behind on payments. And it's also not clear whether the Education Department will be able to fully implement Biden's new, more generous repayment program before the payment pause ends. So basically, like, they've been bragging about, like, oh, like, student loan payments will be capped at 5% or something like that. That's not even guaranteed that's even going to happen now.
Yep.
So basically, right now, they're scrambling because they know they're fucked, but they're trying to scramble to try to make the situation easy for them.
Yes.
In terms of making that transition easy for them, but it's going to be the headache, the true headache is going to be for us who probably had to make calls, kind of going to be on hold forever to try to talk to these student loan services about what they can do, and ending up having to pay the full shebang as it were pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Like Crab is saying Biden should just chill out and live in a bedroom. Biden should just
I wish.
Anyway, the budget challenge stems from Congress' decision last year to keep funding for the Office of Federal Student Aid flat at about $2 billion, rejecting the administration's request of a roughly 30% increase. Republicans appropriators offered to increase Education Department's administrative funding for student loans, but only if it came with a prohibition on using the money for debt cancellation, according to two people familiar with the negotiations. In recent weeks, Education Department officials briefed congressional staff on the funding situation for the remainder of the fiscal year, which ends September 30th. The agency expects its available funds to be fully utilized to support a return to repayment, and department plans to reprogram and shift around some money to boost its loan servicing operations, according to a copy of the plan obtained by Politico. Democrats plan to press for more funding for the Office of Federal Student Aid in the coming months as Congress hammers out government funding for next year, according to House and Senate aides. The administration says it needs a $620 million increase, about 30% from the current level of funding, though that figure assumes debt cancellation will happen, which is all promised not.
Yeah.
There will be tens of millions of fewer accounts to manage.
Yep.
A group of Senate Democrats led by the snake herself earlier this month warned of catastrophic consequences for millions of working and middle-class Americans if the Education Department doesn't get that funding to help borrowers navigate the response. So even she is like, fuck it, you're paying your loans back. Like, no catastrophe in terms of people paying back of not canceling the debt, but like catastrophe results of like for people to repay. So, Congressional Republican Rosa DeLauro, the top Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, will continue to fight for additional resources to FCA to help payment grant recipients and student borrowers, a spokesperson said in a statement. Mark Goldwyn, Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan group that advocates for deficit reduction, said that while he's sympathetic to the Education Department's need for funding to properly restart repayments, the administration has a credibility gap on the issue.
Yep.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 7 times, shame on me, he said, referring to the Education Department's many extensions of the payment pause. There's no question that they need resources to be able to restart repayments and collect the money. The question is, if you give them the resources, are they going to use it for that? Or are they going to use it for their various debt cancellation schemes? Goldwyn said he supports efforts by the administration to minimize the massive disruption of payments restoring for millions of borrowers, such as pulling borrowers out of default and suspending typical penalties for missed payments. It's much better to do this well and with a little more grace than to do it poorly and save a few dollars, he said.
Yeah. You know where that money's going. It's going to go to middle of Europe. You know?
Yeah. Probably.
Well,
any thoughts, Reef? I mean, I know, and again, I know this doesn't affect you, but
thankfully,
you know, thankfully, but again, we have people in the chat, you know, who've gone to college or grad school, are in debt, have been, I wouldn't say blessed, but have had some time not to repay if you chose that option. And yeah, like there's so many people who are banking on the idea that student loans will be forgiven, that somehow the Supreme Court, they're not going to work in your best interest. And basically this article has pretty much all it said.
I mean, essentially the Biden administration is asking where its money at. Where's my money?
Right. But not for the reasons that you think. It's not, it's basically to help their employees deal with the calls that they're going to get over the next couple of months.
Yes, to then steal more money. Like that's
right.
So terrible.
So again, once again, please make preparations now.
Yep. Preparation H even.
Yeah.
You know?
So final story. We should call this segment Reef makes Collin go batshit.
Yes. So okay, we're good. I fixed it. I saved it. Okay. We're good. We're back. I pressed the wrong button. Okay. Jesus Christ. Like, I hope we're good.
Oh wait, they're saying wait.
Okay, hold on. We're good.
Hold on.
I think I got it this time.
Can you guys hear? Can you guys hear us? They're saying no audio.
Yeah, I think audio's back now. Hopefully. Okay, it looks like it's good. Okay. Jesus Christ. Press the wrong button. Anyway, I brought this story because like again, there's this group of like science YouTubers that have been funded in part through members of society like Bill Gates, particularly Kurzgesagt is a famous one, right? And this is a video by Tom Scott, right? I think that's his name.
Depending on
this guy, people recognize this guy. Yeah, Tom Scott. But he's going to talk about this. German scientists are literally making a matrix for locusts, like as in the Matrix, like. So we'll see how this works.
Which science fiction you want to reference? The researchers here at the University of Constance in Germany have either built a holodeck from Star Trek, or the Matrix, or something kind of like the old alien abductions from the X-Files. It's just that they've built it for locusts.
One of the great challenges in studying collective behavior is that there's this intricate network of interactions among the individuals that we can't see, we can't control. And so it's really difficult to understand how these locusts with their local interactions can scale up to swarms that can extend across hundreds of square kilometers. We thought, what if we could have individuals moving and interacting with virtual swarms? And so that's why we've designed this setup. What we do is we put the animal on this large motion compensating sphere. As the animal moves, the sphere always moves to keep it on top. And so it can move in a never-ending desert environment. And by tracking that movement, we know where the animal's gone. The locusts believe these virtual individuals to be other locusts. They will tend to align their direction of travel with near individuals. They will think of themselves as being within a real swarm.
Locusts don't have depth perception in the way that humans do. Prey animals generally have eyes on each side of their head, trading off 3D vision for a much wider field of view. So there's no need for sci-fi holographic systems or tiny little 3D glasses here. As long as they keep an exact track on the locust's eye position and update the screen fast enough, it seems to fool them. I'll be honest, I do find this a little bit unsettling, and it's only going to get more unsettling from here.
Ultimately, decision-making is made in the brain of the animal. So if we're to understand these vast swarms, we actually need to go in and look at how the brain processes this information. So in this VR, we're basically plugging into the spinal cord. The animal here is tethered. It has to be held in place, but it can still walk freely on a ball that's elevated by air, so it doesn't have friction, allowing the locust again to move and interact with a virtual swarm. So we know what the animal's responding to, but now we can also decode the neural signals that are underlying the decisions it's making. So locusts impact the livelihood of 1 in 10 people on the planet through food shortage. They contribute to humanitarian crises across the globe. Yet, no one understood why they form swarms.
So the researchers here have also commissioned this massive imaging hanger and are going to track thousands of locusts individually by attaching tiny retroreflective tags to each one and using a motion capture system with more than 30 cameras. Sub-millimeter precision, 100 frames a second. Again, I had questions, starting with, where do you order thousands of locusts from?
Well, luckily for us, it turns out that entomophagy, or eating insects, is becoming an important aspect for humans and also for agriculture, for farm animals. So
eats the bugs. Collin eats the bugs.
I have.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Little fried cricket, delicious.
There are actually huge locust breeding centers. We collaborate with them, and so they bred the insects for us. We have a whole team of experienced individuals, from senior professors to undergraduate students, all working together, gluing these little tags on the individuals. And this allows us to see the three-dimensional information much, much more easily than we could using many video cameras. The imaging hanger is 15 by 15 by 8 meters. It's designed to mimic the environment in which locusts have evolved. We have extremely bright lights that capture the natural wavelengths of light that they experience. We have the correct temperature, around 27, 28 degrees centigrade, within this large space. So we're looking at the locusts in different densities to see which different structures and patterns form. But then we also want to understand how these voracious insects eat their way through crops, and also how they avoid predators when doing so. So we're also startling the individuals to see how social behavior also influences their response to predators. When the insects hatch, they're flightless. In fact, they're flightless for the first 2 months of their lives. It's only in the final adult stage that they take to the wing. And so the critical stage for understanding the swarms and also controlling them is these flightless juveniles.
And this is about 10,000 locusts. There are questions about testing on insects, of course, but the consensus right now is that they're insects, and as long as there's no unnecessary harm caused, the trade-off is well worth it. These would have been ground up for animal feed, after all, and the world doesn't have a problem with that. And locust swarms aren't cooperative. Researchers have discovered that locusts march in formation because traveling in the same direction at the same speed is the easiest way for each individual to avoid being eaten by other locusts. If humans can understand this swarm's behavior, maybe we can start to understand the gigantic, devastating swarms with billions or even trillions of locusts, the ones that destroy food supplies. Or maybe we can start to improve the forecasting tools, because right now the only methods the world has to deal with devastating locust plagues are vast amounts of industrial pesticides and hope.
I find it astonishing that there are pest insects that impact so many people on the planet, and yet there's so little research into this. And one of the main reasons is that the people that really are impacted by locusts, they're subsistence farmers. They can't afford agrochemicals. You also have countries where they've got other problems to deal with, such as internal strife and conflicts. The last experiments we did with locusts when I was based in Oxford, we had, I think the most was 110 individuals. To approximate what they're doing in nature, we need to start looking at tens of thousands of individuals. The key here is that we need these very large-scale experiments to be that bridge between the lab and the wild. One of the amazing things about locusts is that the swarms just suddenly appear out of nowhere. And so what we're trying to mimic here is, as population density increases, we think that these swarms...
Yeah. Like, terrible.
Yeah. I have thoughts, but I'll wait till the end to share.
Okay.
I thought initially, like, when you told me about this, I'm like, what kind of fever dream are you trying to have me watch? But,
but I do think...
Yeah, I'll wait. I'll go. Keep going.
Yeah, we got a little bit more.
Suddenly start marching together in unison. We're just beginning to understand the wonders of collectives, how groups of neurons communicate with each other to allow animals to make decisions, and then how social interactions connect brains together, such as in locust swarms. So we think locusts can sense the environment through this communication within the swarm. This gives them a swarm intelligence that's beyond the brain of any individual. We can use this to begin to understand how and why these swarms form, and therefore how we can best minimize the impact on humans.
It's a couple of hours later. The imaging hangar has been blocked off from all humans for a little while, and the researchers here are now seeing marching behavior that has never been observed in the lab before. It's only ever been in the wild. It's working, and they've come up with like a dozen ideas for new experiments in the last 10 minutes. This is brilliant.
So that was it. That's all of it.
Yeah. So, okay. So, as I said, I thought this was going to be a shit segment.
Yeah.
But I think immediately, and I think someone said you're trying to create the plague, you know,
Yeah.
but I do think in terms of climate change, and especially in the global south, like Africa and like I would assume Latin America too, like there probably are locust swarms like that probably be happening there too as well. But definitely like Africa, where they're very much agricultural societies, like the research that they're doing to kind of think about locust behavior and how they can kind of help navigate that to prevent total destruction, you know, of crops that people need as far as food and like whatever agricultural infrastructure, I think is important. So in that context, it does make sense. And I think especially, I think the variable would be climate change and like change in like weather patterns and like, you know, like we don't, as they said, they don't know necessarily how locusts swarms start or why they start and like how they navigate, you know, where they will go in terms of like finding food or whatever, like whatever they do, you know. So in that sense, I could definitely see this more as a preventative measure in terms of potentially thinking in terms of like how to prevent like natural disasters and essentially like food shortages in areas of the world where they're more dependent on agriculture in that sense. So that kind of makes sense. That being said, a lot of that shit is also kind of like you must have been high to kind of think of all of that as well.
Yeah.
Like you're basically creating like a virtual helmet for a fucking locust.
Right.
Figure
Terrible.
out its movements or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of problems with that whole video. I mean, if there's like so much thrown into like one video, right? Where like one, they're trying to track the brain signals from a locust to figure out how it moves to possibly even replicate that movement, right? You know, I know we've talked about previously through things like Brett Wilkins did an article about it where AI swarms, right? Like literally talked about that. And this is just like as steampunk possible, your like the AI swarm is literally get like the most macabre, like Giger would be impressed, you know? Like this is slightly insect Kevorkian, you know? Like, but also they're like tracking of this because of food and agriculture, you know. But yeah, I'm sure the military funding on this is through the roof, so good for them. I'm sure Bill Gates and them are looking at this, you know. It's also how can we grow crickets without them swarming? Like it's that too, you know.
But also, how can we essentially keep them as a food source for us?
Yes, without them eating all of our food sources.
Right.
So, Yeah, there's a lot going on there. You know, they had to like literally tap into the brain of a locust to see things. Like that's gonna go well. That feels like a horror movie waiting to happen.
Just don't understand. Like, I mean, there is some benefit to this, but at the same time, it's like the amount of money for this, and yet we don't have cancer cured. We don't have all these diseases cured. We don't even have like money for universal health care in this money. But you're able to spend this money on locusts, right? So, again, I kind of have a problem in terms of, not to say that the science on this isn't valid. I'm sure it is. And I mentioned, some things that how it could be valid, but to do this over, and not even that, actually just kind of taking care of our world just generally, and just ensure that people have food, at bare minimum. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is being funded outside the U.S., which, I mean, it's a NATO country, Germany, like Charles Schwab all over that country. Like, this is definitely, I'm sure members of the what was that we covered earlier? The Center for Inclusive Capitalism, or the Committee for Inclusive like, I'm sure they're part of it. Rothschild's probably funding part of this. I mean, it's standard scientific research, but like, who asks for it? Why exactly are they doing it? Who's funding the research? Like, none of that's really said, which is partly why science YouTube is the way it is, and I think for particular reasons, there's videos on the internet, especially about like Kurzgesagt, a very particular YouTuber, was in bed with like the Gates Foundation, essentially. Right. And it showed with their coverage of vaccines, with their coverage of a lot of things. So, I think a lot of this is used to kind of manufacture some consent for things that people probably wouldn't consent to if they knew about it. But,
yeah.
I also get the benefits of like not having locusts swarm and eat crops. So whatever. But
right.
And as it probably, you notice they were controlling the temperature and the sunlight. Yes. Why do you think they did that? Because it might affect the locust's ability to swarm. So things like global warming, global climate change, things like that. If their climate suddenly changes, is that a factor? That's why they're testing that.
Yes.
So
yeah, and that's why I immediately thought of when they were testing that in terms of the swarms.
Yes.
But it makes sense if Bill Gates' hand is on this. Obviously, he's trying to profit off of this. So obviously any swarms would, at the end of the day, minimize his profits, just based on the land that he's buying up, especially like in the global south.
Wow,
So
Anna Mears on the Rockfin tipped, I can show this, I think. Hold on. If I pop this out and bring it over here, I can show Rockfin. Oh, let's do that, and let's zoom these, shall we? Is Jesse sampling Collin on Apple Model 2? 3 didn't catch that till today's opening. I don't know if he did or didn't.
Wait,
Jesse,
what?
you're in the chat. Please explain.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
That's one of Jesse's songs. Is Apple Model 3.
Oh,
and Anna Mears is wondering, but yeah, thanks for the $20 tip on the Rockfin. Appreciate
wow,
it.
thank you.
It's always appreciated on the INN news. It's always. We also got apparently pulled for a minute on YouTube because they love us for copyright. I'm imagining for something. So if you want the uncut version, we're back. Apparently, it let us go back. So maybe they decided that wasn't the case. Who knows? But if you want the uncut version, Rumble and Rockfin, it's there.
Or just watch our clips. Sure.
That too, which will probably be fine and not get pulled.
Again, I'm thinking it might be the Breakfast Club clip.
That's possible too.
like they just figured, oh,
and then they brought it back at some point. So who knows? But you know, they didn't miss much, I think. So
yeah. Okay.
But anyway, you know, or it's Tom Scott, and if that's you, Tom Scott, you listen to me. That needed to be shown to people, and you know it did, which is why you did the video. I think of all people, an educator would want other people to educate. So if that's you, and that's a copyright claim from your video, like I'm like coming somewhere. We're gonna play ping pong to the death. All right, like tired of this. You know,
yeah, my money's on Charlemagne.
Yes,
it's the one that got us pulled.
I'll play ping pong to the death with Charlemagne too. You think I'm playing like mud wrestling? We will settle this the way men settle things. You know, violence. But anyway, I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, sorry for the brief. That now makes sense because Greg Crab texted me. It was like, "Are you guys still going?" So now it makes sense.
Yep.
So I guess we got pulled briefly. So yeah, at least for that clip, at least that segment
we'll have it. We'll have a clip
somewhere that we'll have in full.
Full unedited stream is on Rockfin and Rumble as always. So you can find links to all the network's channels, including Rockfin and Rumble and Odyssey and all the other places that we are right there at that Indie News Network. Scrolling across that way, it's also in the doobly-doo down below.
And the announcement. So Tara's on this weekend now.
Yes, with Jose Vega, I do believe.
Oh, good. On Friday night, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
What time, sir?
Usually 9 Eastern, 10 Eastern.
Okay. And you and Indy, how do you miss that? Sunday night at 10 Eastern. Crab and Chris with
also, I think right now, if you go to TNT Radio, Misty Williams is interviewing the, you know, always funny Jim Jam Dorsif.
Yes. So she's going to start now with Jimmy. Dore. So go over to her, send her some love.
So go check that out.
So Crab and Chris will be on Alternative Angle Monday night at 9:30.
Yeah.
Jesse will be off next week, I imagine, since he did American Tradition yesterday. And we'll be back on
Misty Winston. Did I say Williams? What is wrong with me?
Yeah. And actually next week
Mindy
is my birthday week.
Yep.
So so come and celebrate with me on this Wednesday.
Send Collin
my birthday's on Tuesday, but
all the gifts.
We'll get all the gifts, all the love. And bring new people to watch us. So but yeah, and then and as I said earlier, Reef and I are talking about different guests that we would like to have on, either like for a full stream or different segments of talking about different issues. So Twitter us at GetIndieNews and hashtag INN News. And let us know who would you like to see. We definitely have some ideas, but we definitely like your input as to who would you like on the show.
Buy some merch. We got merch too. I know it's overpriced, expensive stuff, but you know, hook us up. We appreciate all the love, and especially if you're gonna wear one of those shirts somewhere, or a hat, or drink from the mug, or you know, anything. I got a bucket hat. There's a bucket hat. You can go get a bucket hat. It's right there in that Indie News Network, right down there.
I actually need to buy bucket hats now that I'm actually bald, so I actually need to protect my head. So
yeah. But anyway,
that would be it. But
I think that's it. If I missed anything, I'm sorry. Sorry to Misty Winston for calling her Mindy Williams. I will never do that again. I promise.
Oh, Wendy Williams.
Yeah, Mindy Williams. But anyway, thanks for everyone coming. Appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Do all the things. And as always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.